So our research is focused on the impact of toxic chemical exposures on future generations. And really the ultimate goal is to ensure that those future generations are protected. So the major impact can be through effects on germ cells, so you can affect the male or the female germ cell. You can also have a direct impact on embryos during critical phases of development if pregnant women are exposed. And both of these, through the germ cells or through direct effects on the embryo, will have consequences to future generations. So the chemicals that we're focusing on now we're calling them endocrine disrupting chemicals. And these types of chemicals are a special concern because the endocrine system is really the circuit board for the body. It connects all the pieces. It tells every cell in the body or many cells in the body what to do. And we know that these types of chemicals may have major adverse consequences. So the types of chemicals that we're talking about are not weird and wonderful chemicals. They're actually everyday in the environment, so they're in all of us. And these may include polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, cleaning products in your house, bisphenol A, plasticizers in everything around us, drugs that we take sometimes get into the water and the ecosystem, pesticides. And the ones we're focusing on today are actually flame retardants. So flame retardants for many years were added or still are added to many consumer products to decrease their flammability. And this was to meet technical requirements that were put in place originally in California, but now many places throughout the world. So to meet these requirements, industry had to put these chemicals in. They put them in very high concentrations, and these chemicals leach out. So as you can see in this slide, if I figure out how to make it work. Whoops, wrong way. You can see that they're in furniture, they're in consumer products, they're in basically the chairs you're sitting in, and especially children are exposed because they crawl around on the floor and they actually consume dust as well as by inhalation. So if you looked at the mixture of brominated flame retardants that are in household dust in Canada or basically anywhere in the world these days, you would find that they may have adverse effects. So the experiments that were done in my lab with a team grant, so a lot of people were involved, we're looking at their effects in adult male rats, and what we showed is that they actually have effects on the thyroid hormone physiology. If you look at what happens during pregnancy, before pregnancy, and after in utero exposure, you find that they have effects on digits in the offspring, in the fetuses, and they also have effects in the mothers themselves on ovarian follicle development and on steroidogenesis. And then if you do a little further exposure and you look at what happens to the future generation, what do you see in the progeny? You find that there are effects on skeletal ossification, as you can see in this slide, when you compare the two pause structures, and on things like timing of puberty, and now we're looking at effects on ovaries. So there are many different effects that you can see as a result of exposure to these chemicals. So as you can imagine, once you find these kind of effects, you're not very happy about it. So they get replaced. So, and many governments, including the Canadian government, have regulated or voluntarily withdrawn these types of brominated flame retardants, which are illustrated by these polybrominated diphenyl ether structures. And however, industry still has to meet the requirements for safety, for flammability. So what happens is they get replaced with other chemicals, and currently they're being replaced with organophosphate esters, or this OPE, what we're calling an OPE structure. So the question then is, are these replacements safer than the legacy chemicals that they are replacing? And that's a very important question today, and many people are doing research on this topic. So how do you get ahead of the game? You find something's toxic, it has effects on future generations, you ban it or regulate it, and you replace it. So the new project, the new very major goal that we're undertaking with the help of a lot of people in the team is to develop innovative approaches to ensure that safe replacements are found to replace endocrine disruptors, such as these brominated flame retardants and bisphenol A and plasticizers that I haven't said very much about. So how do we do that? It's a challenging goal, and it takes a lot of different expertise. So one group of our researchers in the team is looking at assessing the exposure to legacy and replacement endocrine disrupting chemicals in everyday food, in water, and in Canada and in South Africa. Another group is looking at the bioactivity of these compounds and comparing the replacements that we find in food and water and in breast milk to the legacy compounds in terms of their toxicity, or the other side is the safety. And then the last group is looking at how we get ahead of the game. So how we put in place regulations, policies, alternatives assessment strategies to ensure that the next time around we actually replace these chemicals with something safer than what we've had before. And so I think that may take us quite a few years.